What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason and Joe here. It is time for another deep dive. We are hitting 1980. If you have not seen our channel before, back at the beginning of our channel, in the early days, we had a series called Album of the Year, where we just quickly went through like our top five picks for each year. Now we're going back, kind of redoing the series. We're spending a little more time on it, spending a couple months listening to as much as we can from a given year, and then we are presenting our top 25. So that's what we're doing today for 1980. This was a pretty fun dive. I enjoyed listening to a lot of like the AOR type stuff, the hard rock stuff, but a lot of that was 3.5. So, not a lot of new stuff on my top 25, not a lot of the new listens. Only two new listens making my top 25, and those are artists that I already knew fairly well anyways. So, I don't think my list is the most exciting, and people probably know what's coming. Not a lot of surprises for me.
Yeah, I mean, I love 1980. I can't say I found too much new stuff that I didn't already know about, but it's a packed year for me. It's, all the old crowd, some of the new crowd coming in. It's got this weird mix, a lot of transition, like transitory albums between like new styles. And for some reason, it seemed like it all worked in 1980, and then every year after had diminishing returns for all the bands that kind of struck it big in 1980. So it's just like the perfect mix for me of like the arty and the popular and the new and the old. So love the year. It's one of my favorite years ever, but not a lot of stuff that I didn't already have.
All right, so we're gonna get into it. We're gonna go back and forth, and yeah, do you want to start? 25.
Yeah, I can start. This was tough because for the first time ever, I had 26 4.5 star and above albums. Even in the 70s, I never quite got to that level. There was always a couple 4 stars hanging out at the bottom. And I just think there's more variety in 1980. Like there's a little bit more from a bunch of different genres that are really good. I don't know about like all-time records, but some great stuff. My number 25 is going to be Diana from Diana Ross. And with apologies to Diana Ross, her name and her face are on the cover, but this is the Nile Rodgers and the Bernard Edwards show. They wrote all the songs, they produced it, they played a bunch of the instruments, and it just sounds so friggin' good. The songs they wrote are amazing. Super catchy stuff. Upside Down, I'm Coming Out, My Old Piano, Give Up, really strong post-disco stuff. And it's just the stuff that they play is kind of unbelievable. I really, I like this album, but I didn't really love it until I started really listening to what they were doing. And the guitar work is absolutely incredible on it. It's kind of amazing. And Diana Ross, I mean, she's good. She's not my favorite singer, though, especially solo. But it just sounds so good that I had to get it on the list.
Cool. All right, number 25 for me. I'm going with Flesh and Blood by Roxy Music. It's actually my least favorite Roxy Music. If you remember our Roxy Music deep dive, I had it in last place. But still 4 stars, and it has my very favorite Roxy Music song on it. I don't know if that happens very often where my favorite song of an artist comes from my least favorite record, but yeah, Over You. I just absolutely love that song. Oh Yeah, I think is an incredible song as well. It's the beginning of like the really slick era and super clean production for them. Less of a rock band here. I think they're down to a trio at this point, and there's some session players brought in. But it doesn't matter. The songs are still really great. Fairy is effortlessly cool. And yeah, it's just a nice pop record.
My number 24, this is an artist I don't think most people know about, but he has appeared twice now on my 82 and 84 list. I got him on CD because you can't hear him anywhere else. It's Right on Time from our boy, our favorite city pop man, uh, singer, songwriter, producer, Tetsuro Yamashita. although he was just known as Tatsu Yamashita back in 1980. Just probably his best collection of songs. I kind of go back and forth between this and Big Wave and his 82. Just they all kind of sound the same. They all have that city pop feel. This one, maybe just a little bit better songs. My Sugar Babe is great. The title track's fantastic. And, if you want to listen to a city pop album, this is a great place to start right here, right on time.
Right, my number 24 is one of my two new listens, and it is Terminal Jive by Sparks. I know a bunch of Sparks records, but I don't know all the Sparks records, and this is one that I wasn't familiar with. We had listened to this record's predecessor for our album of the week. It was before we were doing videos on them, just on the Discord. We listened to Number One in Heaven, and I wasn't super into that one. That one, famously the Giorgio Moroder record, kind of disco-y. And I think Moroder again is listed as the producer, but also with Harold Faltermeyer. And according to Faltermeyer, he did the bulk of the production here. So, yeah, I think this one dials back the disco a little. I think there's just like great pop sensibilities here and the right amount of like disco and new wave elements. When I'm With You, the opening track now sits pretty high on my list of favorite Sparks songs. I think it's incredible. It was a big hit in France, so they spent like an entire year in France promoting the record. And they were at a low point here in the US. This wasn't even initially issued in the States. I think Polydor put it out in Canada, but mainly was a hit in mainland Europe. Yeah, it's cool. Funnily enough, Richie Zito plays bass on this record, who produced Ceremony by The Cult, which is a weird connection. We just did The Cult a couple weeks ago. So yeah, it's a cool one. I like it. I think the pop hooks are just stronger for me. I think it works a little better than the more dancey Number One in Heaven.
Yeah, that's not on my top 25, but it is probably my favorite Sparks that I've heard. It did make my top 50. And yeah, the difference between that and the one we heard is just like it's everything. Like I didn't like the one that we listened to, Number One in Heaven, but Terminal Jive hit all the right notes, really. That one could rise in the future. I didn't get too many lessons in on it. My number 23, an old favorite. They're squeaking on the list now. They're kind of the end of their glory days. We got Queen with The Game. And I think this is the last time that they're really, not every track on here is great, but it's the last time that they would just have like sublime moments. Save Me, Play the Game, I think are two of their best ballads. You got the hits, Crazy Thing Called Love and Another One Bites the Dust. They're two number ones, I believe, here in America. And they are just massively overplayed. And I think that hurts this album. It's kind of like We Are the Champions and We Will Rock You. It's like at one point in my life, I loved those songs, and the joy has been just completely sucked out by hearing them everywhere. I mean, sporting events, just in the supermarket, like they're great songs. I just don't really want to hear them. So album takes a little hit that way, but something like Dragon Attack, I think is still perfect. I love that bass line. And just the diversity in sounds. All members of the band get a song or two or three. And, it does kind of hit the quality a little bit because not all of the songwriters are made equal. But I like the variety. I like the fact that they were big enough that they could just kind of do whatever they want. And, the bass player had a number one hit on this album. So, it worked for them. And I still think it's a very good, very listenable album.
Funnily enough, that is my number 23 as well. Yeah, so I'm much more of a 70s Queen fan than I am of their 80s output, but on this one they still got some magic left in the tank, and it's bookended by the incredible title track and Save Me at the end. John Deacon laying down some of his funkiest bass lines on Another One Bites the Dust and Dragon Attack is just incredible. They dabble in rockabilly, obviously on Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and Yeah, it's not a perfect record, but it's eclectic and it's fun, and I think it's got some incredible highs. So, yeah, not quite as good as the 70s stuff, but better than pretty much everything that comes after.
For sure. My number 22 was recorded in 1977. I don't know if that's cheating. It wasn't released until 1980 though, so I'm gonna count it. I got Sacred Songs from Daryl Hall. It was supposed to be originally imagined by producer and guitarist Robert Fripp as a trilogy of sorts, along with Peter Gabriel's Scratch and Fripp's own album Exposure, which came out in 1979. But Hall's record label didn't want him to release it because they thought it would like hurt his image amongst the Hall & Oates fans. Which is kind of weird. Like, this is not some avant-garde Brian Eno type. It's not like No Pussyfooting or something. The Eno and Fripp just like, what the hell is this sound collage weirdness? Like, this is, it's kind of like Scratch. It's got plenty of good pop tunes. It's got great singing. It's got Fripp and his weird guitar kind of adding that extra texture to the band, to the arrangements that you wouldn't get in a Hall and Oates. And I think for me that's what pushes it to like the next level because I love Daryl Hall's voice. He's got some cool songs here, a little more experimental than what he was doing in Hall and Oates. Um, and you throw in Fripp, and it's just this kind of weird combination. Hearing Hall, the angel voiced, regular mainstream pop guy, yacht rock guy, whatever, and you get Robert Fripp with these weird kind of off-key, off-kilter textures on the guitar, these little runs and solos and everything. And it's just really cool. It's a really cool combination. And yeah, it's something, I really like Scratch, and I think this and Exposure are all really cool albums, and kind of a shame that there were more stuff like this around the time. Fripp could have done some more of this, and I would have loved it, but a really cool album, Sacred Songs, Daryl Hall.
My number 22 is True Colors by Split Enz. Their international breakthrough, going full new wave and pop after their slightly proggy art rock beginnings. I Got You, probably their biggest hit, at least here in the US it was. Great hooks all over the record, really memorable songs. But I think they retain just like enough of like quirkiness and nervous energy to keep things interesting. Also of note, the record comes in a bunch of different colored sleeves and has a cool laser etching on one side of the vinyl.
All right, my number 21 was an album. It wasn't on my original top 25 list when we started this deep dive, but it is an album we know. We've done the deep dive on them before. Argy Bargy from Squeeze. Just a really good power pop, British kind of quirky new wave album from the boys. Maybe my favorite Squeeze album now. It's tough. I had this lower, but really enjoyed it. This deep dive starts off with the 1-2 punch of Pulling Muscles from the Shell, Another Nail in My Heart, which are just two incredible singles, both of which, oddly enough, maybe not oddly enough, but um, both of them show off Glenn Tilbrook's not insubstantial guitar skills, which I feel like don't get enough play on a lot of their songs. His two solos, it's almost like Elliot Easton levels of just like casual brilliance. And then you kind of don't get that again from him, which is a shame because they're great. This was the last album with Jules Holland, their great keyboardist. And I don't know, the lyrics across the board are delightful. The stories feel like they're pulled from real life. There's hooks on every single track. It's just kind of, it's a little perfect power pop album from two just really great songwriters and players.
That was your number one when we did the video.
Wasn't? I
Yeah,
thought East
because
Side Story was.
we had to call in Cram. I was looking at the
Hmm.
video today. Cram hopped on and had to say that Coal for Cats was his favorite because we were doing that back then, forcing the third
Okay,
person.
so it was Argy Bargy. Interesting. That
Yep.
makes sense.
My number 21 is Black Sea by XTC, which is the next listography we will be doing on the channel. Look out for that. This is the band's fourth album, and like you kind of alluded to in the intro of the video, this is the year of like bands hitting like a nice middle ground of like things they sound like before and after, and like meeting in the middle here in 1980. So for XTC, they're coming from like this more angular, post-punky uh, stuff, and then heading towards more like Beatlesque pop. And this is kind of a nice middle ground. Strong melodies, really cool arrangements, still a little frantic and messy in places. Really cool drum sounds and extremely loud drums on this record, which wouldn't always work, but I think in this instance it does. Cool sounds produced by Steve Lillywhite. Only complaint is that it's a little front loaded. The first four songs are absolutely incredible, and I don't think they're really matched again throughout the rest of the record, but the rest of it is still a solid listen. But yeah, Black Sea by XTC, number 21.
Cool. All right, here's a new listen for all y'all. I got TP from Teddy Pendergrass, and I've always loved TKO, but I never listened to the whole album, and I gotta say it's great. I think he navigates the post-disco world really smooth. Some outrageous bass lines, some great playing all over the album. You got songs from Ashford and Simpson and Peabo Bryson and a whole bunch of people, McFadden and Whitehead. Just great tunes. The opener, Is It Still Good to Ya? You know, I think people think Teddy Pendergrass is just always really smooth, but he's got this roughness to his voice, which is just like perfect. Like it just adds this extra little bit. The final track, Let Me Love You's got some great guitar, some really passionate vocals, some great organ work on it. It's just, in a year, I think maybe lacking in R&B and soul, this one hits all the right notes. It's just the perfect smoothness, little rough, great songs, great production, great playing. Just yeah, nails it.
Right, number 20 for me is the self-titled album from Willie Nile. I first heard him in 2006 when he put out the record Streets of New York. Had never heard of him before then, and then I got into that record and then later picked this up on vinyl shortly after. It's kind of like New York punk songwriter. It kind of reminds me of like what Jesse Malin would later do a little bit. But there's also like a little Heartland rock. There's some Springsteen influence that I hear. Also some Steve Forbert I'm picking up on. J.D. Daughtry, Patti Smith's drummer, plays drums on it. And it's produced by the legendary Roy Halley. So yeah, it's just a bunch of good singer-songwriter tunes with a little bit of that New York grit to it. Really cool. Yeah, if you're a fan of any of those artists that I mentioned, or like Dylan, or any kind of classic songwriter, give this a listen.
Interesting. I did not hear that one. My number 19 is an artist that everyone hears all the time, and he's not very cool, but I still love him. Billy Joel, Glass Houses. I think this is one of his more consistent albums. You got the big hits on the first side. You may be right. Don't ask me why. It's still rock and roll to me. But interestingly enough, on an album, sort of his most pure, like rock pop album, it's the deep cuts for me. Sometimes a fantasy, all for Lena. I don't want to be alone, sleeping with the television on, which might be my favorite Billy Joel song. It's certainly up there, top 10. And I think, even the French ones, it, toi, you were the one, close to the borderline, closer through the long night. Uh, his albums seem to run out of steam in a lot of cases, but I think here, pretty much every song, very solid. And if you can just get through the hits that you've heard 8 trillion times, there's a lot more to discover from Mr. Joel.
Okay, number 19 for me is going to be Hotter Than July by Stevie Wonder. Yeah, after the bloated and, in my opinion, not very good Secret Life of Plants, Stevie comes back with this back to basics type of album. It's not as political or like socially conscious as his like classic 70s stuff. It's not really as experimental, but just really solid. He just like kind of boils things down to the bare necessities, just pure pop hooks, really funky grooves. Maybe not quite up to the standard of like the big 4 or 5 or however many albums you want to include in that run, but it is not far behind those. I think there's a lot of really good stuff here. All I Do, Rocket Love, and Ain't Gonna Stand For It, I think are just all-time Stevie bangers. And the rest of it's solid. So yeah, really strong.
All right, so number 18, I'm gonna go with a little Tina Marie, Irons in the Fire, one of two albums she put out in 1980. They're both very good. I like both of them, soul, disco, funk. This one, her second, she took over production. Richard Rudolph, uh, father of Maya Rudolph and husband of the late Minnie Riperton, was her producer. And before that, Rick James, who was kind of a mentor for her. But she took control of the songs, the production, and all the songwriting for Irons in the Fire. And I think it's her strongest piece of work. Super funky, I Need Your Lovin'. Got some great ballads, Young Love, First Class Love, You Make Love Like Springtime. You get the kind of connection there. She's got just an incredible voice, so powerful. And it's just a funky, fun, interesting, the fact that it was written all by her and produced all by her is super impressive for 1980. And she's one of those artists, kind of goes under the radar because she was mostly a hit on, the black radio, the black singles charts, and she broke in the Hot 100 a couple times. She had a top 40 here, but she wasn't super well known. But I think she should be super well known because she's pretty awesome.
Okay, my number 18 is Drama by Yes. Anderson and Wakeman depart and are replaced with two members of the Buggles. Has to be one of the weirdest true statements in the history of rock music. And somewhat shockingly, to me at least, it still largely sounds like Yes. I think they do a great job of slotting in. It's still really progressive, and the songs are long and epic, and the playing is like off the charts, prodigious. But there is just like this slight like more pop sensibility to it. It's kind of subtle and hard to put your finger on exactly what they're doing that's making it feel that way because they're not bringing in like Video Killed the Radio Star type pop songs at all. So yeah, it's just maybe the melodies or the vocal approach or something, but it works really well. I don't know how anyone thought that Horn and Downs would be good replacements, but I can't really imagine anyone doing it better. Unfortunately, it would be like the only record with this lineup. The next one, a few years later, would shake things up and have some different players on it. So, kind of a unique one in their catalog. I think it's really cool, really strong. Good listen.
All right. My number 17. I think you'll be pleased to see this on the list. It was a new listen for me. But I got Adventures in Utopia from Utopia. And I believe, as far as I've heard, this is my favorite Todd Rundgren project. I mean, considering his Utopia work and his solo stuff post 1972, probably not as good as Something Anything, but after that, I like what he does, but he does a lot of weird stuff that I don't quite mesh with. Here, he just nails it with the whole band. There's hints of disco and hints of power pop and hard rock and prog, um, everything. It's just a really great combination of everything that he likes and kind of has his hand in. The harmonies, the backing vocals are amazing. Pretty much every song sounds like it could have been a single. They did have one, their only top 40 from this whole band, Set Me Free, which is great. Everybody in the band gets like a lead or a lead vocal on it, and everybody can sing, and it seems like a really great time, and they do a great job pretty much across the board. And the final track is so wonderfully like disco that I love it so much.
Love to see it. Made me proud. My number 17 is going to be Ready and Willin' by Whitesnake. I know that the 87 self-titled Whitesnake album for a lot of people is like the Whitesnake album, but for me, this is where it's at. A little closer to the Purple sound than the like big 80s hair production. Yeah, they bring in Ian Pace to play drums. He replaces Dave Dowell, who played on the first two records. So you get pretty close to like a Purple lineup here. You've got Pace and Lord and Coverdale. And yeah, Ian Pace is just one of my favorite drummers of all time. And he's incredible on everything, but on this, he's killing it. The non-Purple people are great too. Moody and Marsden on guitars, Neil Murray on bass, all really great. Neil Murray, his bass on Full for Your Loving is so sick. It's incredible. He's just crushing it. And Coverdale sounds awesome too. It's just a badass rock record. I think it's really undervalued. Um, as far as like hard rock records of this era go, and I think it's undervalued in their catalog. I think when people talk about Whitesnake, there's way too much emphasis put on the later 80s stuff, and I think earlier on is where it's at. So yeah, it's a great one.
That one just missed my list. Um, Probably my favorite White Snake outside of 1987. Still my favorite. My number 16, I'm gonna go with Stephen Wonder, Hotter Than July. His 19th album, which is pretty ridiculous to think about, but this was already his 19th. It was only the beginning of the 80s. Brushes off the relative commercial failure of The Secret Life of Plants. It kind of gets back to what makes Stevie Stevie. A lot of joy, a lot of great playing, a lot of great singing. He touches on a lot of different genres. He's got the country song, I Ain't Gonna Stand For It, which I love. I think it's hilarious. Eat Your Heart Out, Beyonce. You got the reggae stuff, the tribute to Bob Marley and Master Blaster Jammin'. You got the tribute to Martin Luther King and Happy Birthday. You got a song, I believe he wrote or wrote some of back in the 60s, All I Do, which has writing credits from Clarence Paul and Morris Broadnax. So he's kind of bringing everything to the table here. It sounds a little 1980s because of the synths, just a little brush of 80s, but I think he does a great job of still writing great sounding tunes. And probably his last really great all-time effort. But it's his 19th album. What do you expect?
16 for me is the other new listen for me, an artist that I like a lot and has actually topped my list in past years. I've got Hold Out by Jackson Brown. Just never got around to this one, and I just assumed from the album cover that it was just like pure 80s slop, but actually it's really good. For the most part, it's like basically the same thing that you get from his previous records, a lot of the same players, the same style of writing, the same production. Um, Maybe some slightly different keyboard sounds and stuff, but for the most part, it doesn't feel too 80s. Interestingly, this was his only record to ever go to number one, aided by the singles That Girl Could Sing and Boulevard, both of which I don't think I've ever heard before. But apparently one of them I think That Girl Could Sing went to number 22 and Boulevard was a number 19 hit. So they're both top 40, but not songs that have really stood the test of time as far as radio play goes. But you also have the excellent Lowell George tribute of Missing Persons, which is really great. And my favorite song on the record, Call It Alone, which has some just phenomenal guitar work from David Lindley. Yeah, just if you like Jackson Brown, don't assume this one sounds super 80s. It should be given the same attention as his 70s work. It's really strong.
Never would have guessed, and I didn't even listen to that because I just assumed that Brown had fallen off sometime in the late 70s, like a lot of singer-songwriters did, but that's interesting to see. At number 15, I'm gonna go Back in Black, AC/DC. It's just hit after hit. It's big, dumb, and full of come-ons and double entendres. But it's just such a fun listen. I love Shoot to Thrill. I love Back in Black. I love Shook Me All Night Long. I love Hell's Bells. These songs, yeah, you've heard them a million times, but when you put the album on and you listen on headphones or on a nice set of speakers. Like it just sounds so good. Mutt Lange does such a great job with production. It's one of those, it's one of the many great albums from 1980 where some key member got replaced completely. In this case, Bon Scott died, so they bring in Brian Johnson. And, they just discover this magic that, doesn't really work much after this. But from like for one beautiful shining moment, it just all comes together and they make one of the great hard rock albums of all time. And that's it. Downhill from here, but one moment, one shining.
I cannot believe that you have that lower than I do. I'm
That is
shocked.
surprising.
Um, and quite a few spots lower. My number 15 is where I have Argy Bargy by Squeeze, possibly the first bifecta in channel history. I don't remember exactly there were a couple around that time where we had to call in the person that was sitting out for their take. Yeah, it's just a classic of new wave and power pop. First two tracks are so insanely good. Another Nail in My Heart and Pulling Muscles from a Shell, just incredible, perfect pop songs. I love both of those songs so much. The rest of the record, not quite that level, but still really good, nonstop hooks, incredible energy. Like you said, Jules Holland would leave after this record and they'd bring in Paul Carrack. And I think they remained excellent writers and still wrote great pop hooks. But I think a little of the energy was lost when Holland left. They just became a little more refined. And this has a little bit of that extra edginess to it that I think puts it over the top for me and makes it my favorite Squeeze record and my 15th favorite of 80.
Right here is your previous, I don't know, still is, favorite album of 1980, Peter Gabriel 3 from Peter Gabriel. And I love the sound of this album. And I love the first half of this album so much. It is so creepy. It is just, there's this sense of unease and just weirdness, dark, twisted. Peter Gabriel hits the 80s and just like becomes this like creepy madman with tunes like Intruder, which is just one of the freakiest songs I think you'll ever hear from like a major label artist. You got a song like Family Snapshot, which is harrowing tale. Games Without Frontiers just sounds like, from a different planet. Um, Tony Levin's bass playing, that like seasick, I don't even know how to, it's like bouncy, weird, rubbery playing adds just like this extra like alienness to it. Like it's this like alien landscape going on. I don't remember. Sounds so cool. It's like almost a dance song, but it's like evil also. Like it's just this living in these two different worlds. Um, and the only thing for me, I don't really care. I mean, I like the songs after and through the wire. Games Without Frontiers is cool, but for some reason, I guess I'm the only person on earth who thinks Biko is kind of boring and doesn't really fit with this album. Lead a Normal Life, Not One of Us is weird, but Lead a Normal Life and Biko just, I don't know, it kind of takes me out of it and back into the real world, which I don't want. I want to be in this weird, twisted, dark Peter Gabriel world. And most of the songs get me there, but I don't, I wanted to get this to 5 stars, but it remains 4.5, a high 4.5 stars.
I don't know if people see this one coming for me, but my number 14 is Saved by Bob Dylan. Uh,
You outsaved me.
yeah, I love this record. I think it was like my 12 when Cram and I did Bob Dylan, and it's only grown on me since then. It is now surpassed Slow Train Comin' for me. I think it's the best of the Christian trilogy. Slow Train is like the one record that people make the concession for that they're like, well, Knopfler's on it, so I guess I kind of like that one, but I think they need to take a closer listen to this. I think it is it's got more grit and more soul. There's more gospel influence. It feels way more authentic to what he's trying to do. And just has some incredible musical performances on it. You got Jim Keltner on drums. Spooner Oldham's keys on this record are insane. His organ solo on Covenant Woman is one of my favorite moments in the entire Bob Dylan catalog, which seems outlandish to say, but it is so good. I love it. I think people like listening to like gospel and soul music, but for some reason they have difficulty accepting it from Bob Dylan. But I think, at least in this instance, he is kind of crushing it. So, yeah, give it another listen, give it another chance. It's really good.
Yeah, it didn't make my list, unfortunately. I wanted to get it on here. It's close, but everything you said is correct. And I think the only thing people don't like about it is it has the most like Jesus talk on it, and it's the most like explicit and least like coded and kind of hidden behind other meaning. Like it's very simple lyrically for Bob Dylan and very to the point. And I think people just dismiss it outright because of that. But it's ridiculous. And you are 100% correct. So that's great to see on there. Love it. Me defending Bob Dylan on this channel, it's ridiculous. My number 13, I'm going to go with Kate Bush. Never Forever. I think it's great. She's got some fancy new synthesizers. She's still singing about ghosts, but she's also getting more into the art rock side, progressive side, even a little bit. Something like Breathing really pushes her frogginess to the next level. Babushka, Army Dreamers are just perfect little art pop songs. And it's Kate Bush. I love her. This album grew in my estimation. It's right under 5 stars for me, high 4.5. And yeah, I don't know if it gets sort of forgotten about, but it doesn't seem to be quite on the same level as The Dreaming and Kick Inside. Um, but it's really great. A really good like transition between like the 70s stuff and the 80s stuff. Another transition record. Here it is.
All right, number 13 for me, I guess could be seen as a transition record as well, although this band kind of took multiple albums to kind of evolve rather than just a quick transition. But I've got Duke by Genesis at 13. They took a little break prior to this one. Some of them did solo records. They all might have done solo records actually, or worked on some solo stuff around this time. But they come back sounding rejuvenated and like a lot of the prog bands in the 80s, this like step towards pop, but not a full embrace. This is still like the Yes record, still very much a progressive rock record. Definitely not as like pure pop as subsequent Genesis records would be. The songs are still really long. They've got these really richly layered arrangements, and they're bringing in just like a little bit more pop sensibility. It's a little bit more melodic. You've got a couple songs like Misunderstanding that are a little more straightforward. But the playing is incredible. It's an incredible sounding album. The mix is amazing. It sounds so huge, and you can hear every instrument so clearly. You don't have to strain to hear what's going on. It just is crystal clear and sounds big. And it really highlights Phil's voice, I think, really well, which just comes through sounding amazing. No secret why he became omnipresent in the 80s. He's just got like a perfect voice for radio, and it's so appealing and just sounds really good. And yeah, it's just a great record, great playing, really cool songs, the right amount of accessible, and just, yeah, good stuff.
All right. I have a feeling you're gonna have this one higher than me, which doesn't feel right. Number 12, The Blizzard of Oz from Ozzy Osbourne. Although, actually, the this was originally going to be called The Blizzard of Oz. That was going to be the name of the artist, Ozzy's project after Black Sabbath. But I think Sharon got involved and eventually it just became an Ozzy Osbourne record, and pretty much everyone besides Ozzy and Randy's contributions got downsized to the point where they actually re-recorded uh, Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley's parts, which is ridiculous. Horrible decision by them. But this remains, stuff a legend. Randy Rhoads just bursts onto the scene. incredible, unique, style of his own guitar playing. You hear it on Crazy Train, you hear it on Mr. Crowley, you hear it everywhere. He's great. I think Ozzy sounds great. But I think the secret weapon is Bob Daisley's songwriting and bass playing. His work on I Don't Know is amazing, using like a octave pedal to get it like super high. Sounds really cool. Kind of does like a Paul McCartney impression on Goodbye to Romance, which, shows the breadth and the scope of Ozzy and Bob's songwriting. And I think for like a heavy metal record, there's a lot of good dynamics and not afraid to slow things down, not afraid to kind of be touching and sweet, not just full heavy metal assault, not just, devil worship, Satan, kind of stuff. Like there's more here. It's more interesting than just that. And then sometimes you just want to put on Mr. Crowley and just like worship the devil and evil and stuff. And I would for Randy Rhoads guitar work. Yeah, I'd probably sell my soul to Satan as well. Incredible, just awesome stuff.
Yeah, I am out hard rocking you as well.
Yeah.
My number 12 is Wild Planet by the B-52s. Just one of the most unique bands ever, and they have such like a clear vision too. If they're not like just being weirdos, like they have this very like established aesthetic right out of the gate that they kind of stick to, and I think that is super cool. They have that kind of like retro futurism with the beehives and the surf guitar inspired riffs. And I just think the way that all works together is so interesting. I think their debut record is probably a little better than this one, but this one's got some fantastic songs as well. Party Out of Bounds is great. Private Idaho is great. Quiche Lorraine. But probably my favorite track is one I don't hear about quite as much, and that is Give Me Back My Man, which is such a cool song. It's got that really pulsing like synth bass and an incredible Ricky Wilson guitar riff, and the vocals are awesome and it's really catchy. Overall, just a good record, and Fred Schneider is just captivating. So I love it.
Interesting. I didn't know if you would take to them. Kind of doesn't seem like a Jason Core type artist, but that's
I'm into them.
good to know. My number 11. We've done this artist, and I believe I gave this 5 stars then, and I still do. 5 stars and above from here on out. So, number 11, Los Angeles by X. And just a very cool mix of punk and more than punk. It's got that rockabilly kind of guitar work. It's got some new wave. It's got, a whole bunch of weird kind of stuff that they all jam together. John Doe and Exene. They're not great singers, but something magical happens when they sing together. It just works really well. The speed of the music, it's not post-punk monotone bellowing. Like it's got this kind of drive and energy to it. I love the guitar work. There's some like Chuck Berry channeled through the Sex Pistols stuff to it. Billy Zoom, just really cool, interesting guitarist. I think Ray Manzarek's production is excellent. He keeps the band sounding good. The instrumentals and everything sound great. Covering Soul Kitchen, great little idea there, probably Ray's. There's just something cool, something different, something more interesting to me about the way they cover, the squalor and dirtiness of Los Angeles and put it in these kind of peppy, fun songs about heroin addiction. And it all just kind of works. And I think it's a great sound and a very cool band.
11 is where I've got Blizzard of Oz, the beginnings of one of the most unlikely solo careers in rock history. Apparently, Ozzy basically just assumed his career was over after being kicked out of Sabbath. Basically, just drinking himself to death in a hotel room, and then Sharon swoops in, who she was given like a contract from her dad, who had the contract, and she just took over and somehow steered this ship. And it's kind of a remarkable record. It's the record that introduces the world, for the most part, to Randy Rhoads and his incredible talent. And I say it every time I talk about Ozzy, and you kind of alluded to it, but he's way more than just like a maniac frontman. He's such a good rock singer. I would put him up against almost any singer of heavy music ever. I think he's one of the best. His vocals on Goodbye to Romance are phenomenal. The double tracking and the harmonies that he's singing with himself are just great. Tons of emotional depth as well. Not just on that track, but on something like Suicide Solution or really any time he's singing. I think there's layers to enjoy. So, yeah, like you said, it's more than just heavy metal, full throttle, hard rock, even though it satisfies those needs as well. Randy's playing is incredible and it rocks really hard most of the time, but you know, there's shades and lightness and darkness to this thing, and I think it's really, really good, especially from, where Ozzy was coming from at the time.
Number 10, we got a transition album from the great David Bowie, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. Now, I'm not the biggest Berlin trilogy fan. I like to knock low any chance I get. And, Bowie's great. Everything he does is great. But I do consider the Berlin trilogy a step down comparatively because I love the glam rock stuff. I love the folk stuff. And the Berlin trilogy just doesn't quite do it for me. Here, he kind of gets back to, it's not like back to the glam sound at all, but like back to making popular music. He takes, new wave and post-punk and, everything and kind of just whips it into this really weird, bizarre set of tunes that somehow are also like really catchy and rock really hard. It's a great trick. Him and Tony Visconti do a great job producing it. Robert Fripp comes back, which always it's like a half star right there because you get those weird guitar phrasings and textures and solos and stuff that like doesn't it shouldn't work, but it always does because he's just such a great writer of parts. I love Bowie's like more abrasive singing that he does on It's No Game, number one. He's like kind of scratchy and screaming. And the whole album, it kind of, it's like a little unsettling, a little off, but also it's super catchy and great writing. And it's that collision of those two sides that just, I don't know, it's a 1980 thing. It's a thing that I love. He recycles Major Tom, he recycles Heroes, and it all works. Everything he does, magic touch on this one. Great culmination of pretty much his entire career up to that point.
Number 10 for me is Back in Black by AC/DC. Despite my best efforts to keep this out of the top 10, it could not be done, which may sound like a weird thing to say, but I think I've kind of like outgrown AC/DC on a lot of ways and like thinking about like music that excites me. Like this is not an exciting pick for me, and I will probably for the rest of my life will never put this on outside of having to for the channel, like a reason like this. But put it on, and goddamn, it's so good. It sounds so good. Mutt Lange's production is incredible. It's just got perfect riffs, perfect grooves, the swagger, Angus in his schoolboy outfit, just duck walking all over the place, and it's awesome. And plus, you get the backstory, of the changing singer, and it gives it this sort of aura that is just undeniable. It's an undeniable record. This is either on your 1980 list or you really pride yourself on going against the grain. So, yeah, Back in Black, gotta be here.
Yes, number nine, you talked about it already, and it is just a weird ass combination, another collision. I got drama from Yes, and yeah, okay, the Buggles and Yes, kind of what what kind of weird ass mashup is that? And the fact that it works as well as it does is incredible. Just seamlessly replaced by Trevor Horn and Jeff Downs. Yeah, I mean, you still got the progressive spirit because you still have Steve Howe and Chris Squire and Alan White. but then you also have like this cool, hip new songwriting acumen of Trevor Horn and Jeff Downes. And while it's not on the level of Close to the Edge, like it's still a really, really, really good for prog, and especially for prog in 1980, because prog had kind of collapsed in on itself like a dying black hole. And it just wasn't, I don't know. I mean, I can't think of many great like 1980s prog albums in the classic sense of the word. Um, and yet here here the members of Buggles kind of re-infuse and revitalize a band that just got done making Tornado in 1978, which sucks. And that they can come back and make something as cool as this. God love them. It's a great album.
I like Tormato, but Drama's
I like
better.
two songs on Tornado, but
Drama's better. My number nine is Panorama by the Cars. Feels like a little bit of like the black sheep of the Cars discography. By all accounts, my father at least tells me that Touch and Go is everywhere at the time. But even the hits from this haven't really stuck around. I never hear Touch and Go on the radio or anywhere. I'm not exactly sure why it's so forgotten and overlooked. It is a slightly darker record, both tonally, the sound of it, and I think in its mood, than a lot of other Cars stuff, but it's still loaded with really good songs, good hooks, wry lyrics. Elliot Easton's incredible, always underrated guitar work. Kind of like I said about the XTC record, it's a bit front loaded. I think the first four tracks here also are the best four tracks on the record. But even in the back half, you still get some cool stuff like Misfit Kid, I think is pretty awesome. Down Boys has a great vocal performance from Ben Orr and a great Elliot Easton solo. And the closer, Up and Down, is this kind of like trashy sounding. It's got like these loud, obnoxious drum sounds, and it's got like this dark and mysterious sound to it with these like sweet melodies poking through occasionally in what you might call, I don't know if it's the bridge or the chorus, but um, I don't know. I think this record is interesting, and I think it's pretty underrated, and I don't see why it's thought of much more lowly than Candy-O and Shake It Up. I think it's right there with them.
another one that just missed my list, but I agree that it's quite underrated. My number eight, I got Making Movies from Dire Straits. It's almost a perfect album. And side one, Tunnel of Love, Romeo and Juliet, and Skate Away. And that's literally perfect. Like that's 10 out of 10 all-time status type side A right there. I think Knopfler Company finally put it all together on this album. There was hints of greatness, a song like Sultans of Swing. Obviously, basically a perfect song. Showed off Knopfler's just brilliance as a guitarist, his very goodness of a lyricist and an arranger and everything like that. And then I just think these songs are better than that song in pretty much every way. The guitar work on Tunnel of Love at the end is so friggin' good. All the fills and the runs and everything he's doing. But I think his lyrics are even better here. The hooks are everywhere. And I think really the only thing that holds this album back from being like number two or three on my list is Les Boys at the end, kind of a throwaway toss off little number. Kind of ruins the whole like vibe of what's going on because everything else is great. It's espresso love, hand in hand, solid rock, just dynamite rock songs. Then you get Les Boys. Kind of sucks, but everything else is great. You don't have to listen if you don't want to. It's still a 34-minute album without it. Would be perfect. But yeah, Knopfler, brilliant. Just brilliant. Love it.
My number eight is Adventures in Utopia by Utopia. Utopia was started by Todd as like his prog outfit. Got to stretch out and play guitar more, less song focused, and over time that just kind of shifted to where Utopia became his pop vehicle while he made more and more experimental solo records. And the record before this is like really the first big shift towards pop. That record's called Oops, Wrong Planet. but they just go further with it here and get better, and you get a lot more like strong songwriting efforts on this, especially from the other non-Todd members of the band. Willie Wilcox comes in with "You Make Me Crazy," which is like this great new wave, like AOR power pop type of song. Roger Powell delivers "Caravan," which is like the most epic prog adjacent type of song on the record, but it's also really memorable and has strong melodies. And Chasm comes in with "Set Me Free," which was their only top 40 hit. And he co-writes a handful of other tracks with Todd as well. "Set Me Free" has like a pretty sick Todd sax solo on it, which is nice. And yeah, I just love a band with a bunch of really strong songwriters, especially where like those records where like everyone in the band is kind of like hitting the crest of a wave at the same time. Everyone's on their A game, and yeah, I think that's kind of what's happening here. Everyone's delivering really strong material, and it makes it really varied and fun, and still, you know, fits together as a record. It's not too scattered and all over the place. But yeah, it's a good one.
Right, this one was in my top five under the album of the year series. It's dropped. I mean, really hasn't dropped. I just had a couple albums jump up. But I got "Get Happy!" Two exclamations. It's really loud by Elvis Costello. And I think people know how much I love this Elvis Costello, but we haven't done an Elvis Costello deep dive. So I don't know if people really know how much I love Elvis Costello. And the answer is a lot because usually this is kind of viewed as his like, I don't know, break between brilliance. Maybe like the first time you see the cracks in the Costello show, but not to me. I think this is a remarkable album. You get 22 to 3 minute, just punchy, perfectly written gems. You know, it's similar sounding, but there's enough diversity in it. You just have some of the best playing on a pub rock type album ever. Not even, yeah, I shouldn't say pub rock. Best playing on a rock album ever. I love his band so much. Steve Neves, keys and organ, one of my all-time favorites. Bruce Thomas, top 10 bass player ever, as far as I'm concerned. Just the things he does is remarkable. He makes kind of simple songs just really stand out with these incredible lines. I love Pete Thomas's drums. I love Elvis Costello. He's probably my favorite lyricist, or one of them of all time. And every song has a wicked verse, a chorus. And I think for such a simple, kind of stripped down sound, there's just so much going on, and it all comes together just cohesively, tunefully. I don't know. People may disagree, but and it might just be my love of Elvis Costello, but he basically can do no wrong in this period of his career for me.
Yeah, that one missed my list. It is one of my lesser favorites of his earlier stuff. I wouldn't say it's where the cracks start to show because I he goes on to do a ton more amazing records after it. But yeah, I don't know. That one never quite connects as well for me. My number seven, this is like my one like kind of out of left field pick for this whole list. I usually have more of them, but like I said, pretty straightforward list for me this time. My number seven is "White Music" by Crack the Skye. This is another prog band turning towards pop and new wave in 1980. They're a band with a weird history. They're from Weirton, West Virginia. And then after their second record, their singer left and they got some new guys. One of those guys was from Pittsburgh. So that's, I think, and then eventually they backed up B. Taylor. So they kind of like became an adopted Pittsburgh band, even though they're not quite from here. And so my dad had a bunch of their records, I think, because they got played like regionally on the radio around here. Anyways, after that third record, they break up. This is like a reformed version of the band that brings back the original singer, but still has some of the other guys and whatever. It's very much unlike the other prog bands shifting towards pop. There's no prog left here. This is a purely like new wave, quirky, weird pop record. If you like quirky and weird 80s music, this is an album I think that's just stacked top to bottom with like radio ready gems, like hits that should have been that never quite were. If you're interested in that sort of sound, check out The Radio Cries, It's Singles Time, Hot Razors in My Heart, All American Boy, just super catchy, super fun, a little bit weird, but I think a lot of people will dig it.
That one was on my radar and I totally forgot to listen to it, but I just knew that they were from the region.
One thing I'll say, if you go to listen to it on streaming, the first two tracks, for whatever reason, they've like stuck the bonus tracks on, and they are terrible reworkings of tracks from the record. Do not be fooled by those. Skip to track 3, which is called like Poptown 2 now or something. I don't know. It's weird and messed up, but those aren't those aren't real.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I will not include them in my score whenever I get around to that one. Number six, I'm gonna go with, and this was in my top five before it dropped too. Huh. I still love it though. Permanent Waves by Rush. 80s Rush, favorite era of Rush. The playing is still prolific. I basically became a bass player because free will, and I loved it so much, and I was like, I gotta learn this, and that's why I wanted to play bass. Um, but the choruses are better. The vocals are toned down. The songs have, more specific parts that, could be played on radio. They write songs to be heard by the masses. Not so much there's still longer songs on here. Natural Science and Jacob's Ladder are progressive, but they're not kind of like out there in space. Like they have a little more kind of anchor to them. And, you know, Rush could write a pop song. It's not like they couldn't, Closer to the Heart and even songs like Anthem, kind of hard rock tunes, they were good at that kind of stuff. But I think they put it all together here. Free Will, Spirit of Radio, massive hooks all over the place. Different strings is just gorgeous. Entre Nous has amazing verses, and I think their chorus on Entre Nous could be a little bit better. That's like my only critique of the whole album. And they hit the progressive stuff as well, and it's just a band. I don't know that kind of reforming and turning into something a little different and going in a different direction. And it was 1980, and everybody was doing it, and few bands did it better than Rush.
My number 6 is Remain in Light by Talking Heads. Probably the most boundary pushing of all the Talking Heads albums. You got Eno producing, you've got Adrian Belew adding guitar, basically like a fifth member on this record. They're mixing world music and Afrobeat and all these crazy rhythms with like dance and funk bass lines, and you have like new wave electronics melding with Belew's wild guitar tangents, and it's just really unique. Nothing really like it. Eno points out that there aren't really chord changes on this record. They're all like kind of existing over pedal points, which the whole record just feels like it's floating and like waving on this like watery kind of landscape. You're just kind of buoyant and riding on the music, and I think it accomplishes the difficult feat of, really being like forward thinking and challenging, but finding a mainstream audience, which not a lot of records really do. Once in a Lifetime, one of my favorite songs of all time, one of my favorite recordings of all time. It just sounds completely otherworldly. David Byrne is mesmerizing on that track and on the whole record. Yeah, I know you don't like it that much, but it is awesome.
No, I don't like it, but I see why other people like it. I will point out, however, that it was not mainstream. Audiences hated it. It bombed, and none of the songs made even the Billboard Hot 100. So wisely, they went back to their old style the next record.
Once in a Lifetime had to eventually make it, right?
Mm, maybe way later. Topped out 102nd. I think it maybe top 40 in like Britain later, but it was never a Billboard charting song in America, I believe. Unless it was.
Peaked at 91 in 86.
Okay. So it did make the Hot 100 many years later. for whatever reason. I don't know why.
Probably, is that when Stop Making Sense came out?
That makes sense. 84.
I don't know then. It was in a movie or something.
Goddamn mystery is what it is. Somebody can tell us. There's enough freaking super fans of that album. Pretty sure we'll find out in the first couple comments. Uh, my number five is Super Trooper from ABBA, which contains two of my favorite female singers of all time, Anna-Frid Lyngstad and Agnetha Fältskog. Um, and Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus writing, producing, playing. I just love ABBA. I can't help it. I don't hide it anymore. Disco was pretty much dead in 1980, so ABBA goes back to the pure Scandinavian pop here. The title track is amazing. Winner Takes It All was my song of the year in 1980. Controversially, people really didn't like that. I busted that one out. But I stand by it pretty much. Maybe we'll see. It's still one of the great tracks of the year, one of the great pop songs of all time. And I think this might be their most consistently great album. I think I had a rival ahead of it, but on and on and on. Andante Andante, Me and I, Happy New Year, I think is great. Our Last Summer has a really cool guitar solo in it. Lay All Your Love on Me is this electro pop, and they close it out with Alive, the way old friends do. And it's just very heartwarming and joyous, and I love that about this band. It's a little dark at the edges. It's not quite the Visitors, but it's a record of frustrations with fame and love. And this was kind of in the middle of the divorces. I think Bjorn and Agnetha had already been divorced, and Benny and Anna-Frid were gonna be divorced by the time the Visitors came out the next year. So it's got the darkness in it, and it's got the light. It's the best of ABBA.
Okay, next up, maybe controversial. Um, Not because of what it is. We did not discuss this. Maybe we should have. But I've moved this from 79 to 80. It was on my 79 list initially, and when that old video came out, I got so much like, it's from 80, it's from 80, it's from 80. And I've tried to research it. I've looked everywhere online for like a definitive answer on this, and no one can seem to give me one. You'll see conflicting 79, 80. Initially, I thought it came out in the UK in 79 in December, and then it was released in the US in 80, and that's why there was the discrepancy. But I've had that refuted, and people say that that's not true. Whatever. I'm counting it in 80 now. It feels like 80 is the more accepted place for it. But I've got Pretenders, Pretenders, their debut record. Incredible debut. Just unbelievably good songs. Chrissy just comes roaring out of the gates, snarling and dropping F-bombs on Precious. Just one of the coolest like opening statements from a front woman ever. But she's also capable of just like stunningly beautiful vocals as well. Her vibrato is probably my favorite by any singer ever. And the band is phenomenal. James Honeyman Scott's guitar just delivers that perfect blend of jangle and like power chord ferocity. And yeah, just the songs. It's stacked. Precious, Brass in Pocket, Kid, Mystery Achievement, Tattooed Love Boys, Stop Your Sobbing, just top to bottom, just amazing stuff. One of the best debuts ever. Maybe not, but top five for sure.
Well, I don't care when the album is from because I like it, but it was not in danger of making my list. I do have it over there though. It's in the corner. I could have checked the year for you on it.
I think it says 79, but
Whatever. Doesn't matter. People can put it wherever they want. Number four, it's a classic. It's higher than it's ever been. 5 stars. Gaucho. It was always the one that I left off of the 5 stars of the original Steely Dan run. No more. Wisely, I think, gained some maturity in the last couple of years and some dadness, and I finally recognize its 5 star potential here. I can't get enough of it. maybe it's because I've listened to it the least because it was never my favorite. Always kind of lagging behind the warmer, 72, 73. And then, the jazzier stuff like Asia, the prolific guitar work of the Royal Scam, you know, it's the yacht rock album. But I think what I've really learned to appreciate, one is the lyrics, and it's their best, I think, lyrically. They've never been this sharp, never been this funny over an entire album. There are enough bolts of energy from Mark Knopfler and Larry Carlton in the guitar work to, it is a very not safe sounding. It's a very cold, like calculated computer-esque, timing. Just they made a drum machine for like $70,000 and used it on here, despite having like the greatest drummers of all time in Jeff Porcaro and Bernard Purdy just like hanging out, like doing whatever they wanted. Like, no, we need to be more precise with the drum timing. And that was kind of their downfall, I guess. They broke up after this album because I don't know, they just couldn't get it perfect enough in their brains. But these are just perfectly sharp, manicured tunes, incredible horns, incredible guitar, incredible everything. Babylon Sisters, Hey 19 is just pitch perfect lyrics. I love it. I love the sleaziness of Gaucho. It's just so bizarre and just perfect. And like you'll just never hear a song like it ever. I think people quibble with the lack of warts on the album, but that's a feature, not a bug for this level, this iteration of Steely Dan. And I accept that now.
All right. Well, you might not have been a fan of Talking Heads, and Pretenders may have not been in consideration regardless of its release year, but we're on the same page for my top four because I don't get to talk about anything new for the remainder of the video. These are all records you've talked about. My number four is Scary Monsters by David Bowie. Was number three on my Bowie list, 5 stars. Like you said, he comes out of like this experimental period and kind of returns to pop music here, which he did a little bit on Lodger, but much less successfully. And he's also like pulling in like all the new sounds of the time, post-punk and new wave especially. But he's also got like some of that experimental edge from the Berlin trilogy that he's allowing to seep in to these more straightforward songs. He's got Fripp on guitar just going absolutely nuts, which really makes the record. I think it's my favorite playing of Fripp's entire career on this record. Everything he's doing is so cool. Teenage Wildlife, incredible. It's No Game has amazing guitar. Up That Hill Backwards, Scary Monsters, just what Fripp's doing is unreal. And yeah, it's another one of these records. I feel like it's the theme of the year where people were making challenging music that had a certain level of accessibility to it. It wasn't completely avant-garde, even though it may have been inspired by avant-garde things. Yeah, it's great.
Indeed. Number three is the biggest riser of any album on my list. It's a new entry into the top five. You've talked about it, but I never appreciated this album as much as I should, and that is Duke from Genesis. I only had this as 4 stars. It was kind of always on the lower echelon for me of Phil Collins led Genesis albums. I don't know why I thought that because I've always loved like the first 3 tracks. Um, and then I don't know, something just maybe I found it hard to finish. And I don't know why. Like I was listening to it and I was like, there's no like bad songs here. Like what made me like not consider this an upper level, if not, top three Genesis albums, which it might be for me now. And I don't know. I honestly don't know because every song on here is awesome. It's progressive, it's tricky, it's brainy, it's emotional pop music, and it lives in that space between the pure pop kind of Abacab and the self-titled Genesis and Invisible Touch. And, stuff like Lamb Lays Down on Broadway, the proggier stuff, the weirder stuff, it's got both. And I think that's what makes it so successful. It's got the progressive yearnings to it, but I think it's anchored in pop songwriting. I think Phil Collins never sounded better here, ever on any album, solo or with Genesis. His vocals on Duchess and Cul-de-sac, as he calls it. I always said cul-de-sac, but Phil says cul-de-sac, and I'm going to go with Phil on this. Just are amazing. The emotion, the soul he puts into his vocals, I just love. I can't get enough of that. His drumming's amazing. Without a true lead guitarist, you got Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks kind of pushed into the forefront with the bass, and I guess Rutherford plays some guitar, but the bass, Tony Banks's keys really just take the focus of a lot of these songs, and I think they do a great job of making it interesting, keeping it poppy on Misunderstanding, Turn It On Again, uh, but there's a ton of melodic, interesting stuff going on here. Um, and yeah, it's just like the perfect middle ground between the prog and the pop. And like you said, I don't think they've ever sounded better. The production's amazing. The way it sounds is amazing. And yeah, it's just an emotional pop, progressive, just, yeah, it just works on every level for me.
All right, my number three is Making Movies by Dire Straits. Not a ton of records that I have such vivid memories of my first time hearing them, but this is one of them. I was working at the record store, and it was like one of the first warm days of the year. I had the door open. I was running the store by myself. No one was around. It was like the middle of the afternoon on a weekday, and I put on not my copy of the record, just the store's copy of Making Movies, and had it blast in with the door open, and it blew me away. I could not believe I was familiar with some Knopfler solo stuff, and I knew a bunch of songs by Dire Straits, but had never listened to an album really before then, and it just completely knocked me out. Instantly became one of my favorites of this era, 1980. I believe in the Dire Straits video, I say it is a strong contender for my favorite of the year, and here it is at number three. Just incredible playing. Knopfler, obviously, for sure, but the whole band is just like such a cohesive unit here. The mix is great. I think it really nails down the Dire Straits sound, and it's just by far the most consistent set of songs from Knopfler. Like you said, side one is one of the great album sides of all time. I think it's unbelievable. Les Boys or Les Boys is a little weird. It kind of takes you out of the vibe of the record. I don't dislike it maybe as much as you do. I think it's still a good song. It's just not quite in the right place on this record. But other than that, it is a perfect record. Sadly, overshadowed by Sultans of Swing and some of the singles from Brothers in Arms, which get all of the attention when it comes to like radio play. But I'll take these tunes any day. I think they are head and shoulders. I mean, Sultans of Swing is awesome, but yeah, something about the storytelling here is just unreal.
Yeah. I don't hate Les Boys. It actually has some interesting horns going on with it, which it grew on me a little bit. I still think it's weird and out of place, but I don't hate it. I'll say that. Number two, Dirty Mind. Prince, you knew it was coming. Saying it is exactly the same as it was last time. And I think we've talked about this album enough. We just did the Prince discography. I don't know. Maybe it was last year, but it seems like yesterday. Um, One of those great outlier albums from 1980. Sounds nothing like anything else he ever did. It's new wave. It's like bedroom pop, which he probably invented here. It's funk. It's R&B. It doesn't sound like anything else because it has this raw demo-like quality to a bunch of the tunes. He recorded it in his basement. It's like 99% Prince. Lisa Coleman, her first appearance, on Head. Dr. Fink is on two songs, and that's it. Everything else is Prince and his filthy mind. And you have songs like Sister and Head, and they're just really just bizarre, and you kind of can't even believe that they're happening. But that just adds to the charm of the album. Nothing else like Dirty Mind.
Trying to think what your number one is now. I can't remember what your winner was before. I have a
Shocker. It's gonna be a shocker. No one's gonna see it coming.
I have a guess. I think I do remember what it was, and I don't think you've talked about it yet. I,
So,
I don't want to
so
spoil it, but
don't talk about your records.
my number two has risen a little for me, at least since the last time we talked about 1980. It's Permanent Waves by Rush. I mean, there was a point well before we made that first video where this might have been my winner, so it was here and then it dropped and now it's back at number two. I love this record. I've always loved it. The record previous to this, they had kind of maxed themselves out on long, complex songs, Hemispheres being that record. So here they pivot a little. Still got long, complex songs, but also just like way more focused and accessible and better melodies and like tighter arranging. I said this in the Rush video is I think it's the biggest change between two Rush records. They always kind of like slowly evolved and like changed with the times, but I think the difference from Hemispheres to Permanent Waves is maybe the most shocking shift in their whole catalog. All of a sudden they're pulling in like some new wave elements, and Neil Peart is clearly very being very influenced by Stuart Copeland, and they're throwing in like the little reggae sections and Spirit of the Radio, and yeah, I think what's really great about this record is I think it shows that you don't have to sacrifice virtuosity or your ability as a player to make like more accessible music and be more palatable to a wider audience. I think they opened themselves up here to a bigger audience, that like rock radio type of audience, and didn't sacrifice anything in doing so. I think they only got stronger for it, and it's great. Song for song, one of their strongest, only 6 tracks, but they're all really awesome, even different strings.
Yeah, nothing wrong with different strings. All right, number one, we all knew it was coming, right? Steamer Dreamer, Steve Walsh.
It's a good record.
It is a good record. I did buy it. It's not on my top 25. I do love the cover, and it's a solid record. Title track's really great. Maybe it'll make my top 25. No, I'm going to Sabbath, Black Sabbath, the new Black Sabbath, the album that doesn't really sound like Black Sabbath, but it's a Black Sabbath album, so we got to count it. Heaven and Hell. I don't remember when I heard this album, but it just immediately the sound of it has just captivated me ever since. It's less, Sabbath, sludgy Sabbath, Aussie Sabbath that, you're familiar with. And really it's pretty close to new wave of British heavy metal, Ronnie James Dio type hard rock than it is Sabbath. But that doesn't, diminish my love for it. I think it sounds just incredible. I worship at the altar of Geezer Butler's bass tone on this album. It's so mid-range and it's so like mammoth, and it just takes over it's too metal what Paul McCartney's bass was to the Beatles. It's just like omnipresent in all these songs, and it sounds so good, and it's so odd for a metal album. But there's just something about just putting this album on and just like, I don't know, just vibing with what they're doing. I love Tony Iommi's guitar tone here. It's messy, his playing, but like it's also precise, and it's got a great unique tone that kind of moves away from what he sounded like in, the original iteration of Sabbath to something a little more modern, a little more 80s. The drummings are great. Ronnie James Dio's vocals. He doesn't sing like Ozzy, and that adds like a whole nother level of melodic space that they can explore. And he sounds great. I mean, he's one of the greatest metal singers of all time. And I love the tracks: Neon Nights, the Title Cut, Walk Away, Wishing Well, Lonely is the Word. There's no bad songs. There's nothing on here that's even like mediocre for me. Everything is at a super high level, and a perfect bridge between the old school metal, the new school metal that was to come. And I just love it. Loved it since the day I saw it. I wasn't confident enough in myself to put it number one on the Black Sabbath list, but it's just like right there for me. And I don't know. Maybe it's not as good as Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, but it's really close for me. And uh, another one where it worked so well, lightning strikes, all comes together. Next album, pretty good, obviously not the same. And then, Sabbath kind of falls apart after that. So 1980, just the year of miracles.
Okay, so we have 11 in common this year. The 11th is Melt by Peter Gabriel, Peter Gabriel 3, whatever you want to call it. Peter Gabriel said that he wanted an album to usher in the 80s, meaning he wanted something that sounded new and different. It's often credited as being the first record with gated reverb on it on the track Intruder, discovered with Hugh Padgham and Phil Collins on the drums. Obviously, Phil took that sound and ran with it. And then it became the sound of the 80s. So in that way, he was pretty successful in ushering in the 80s. Also, you got all these other unique sounds, obviously, Tony Levin's bass. Also, the decision to not include any cymbals on the record. He said he didn't want any metallic sounds, which at first you don't really notice. At least I didn't. But to be a drummer and not have the cymbals and like have to find another way of like moving the song through the different sections, I think it has to change the feel of the record somehow. So I think it does lend itself to the uniqueness of this record. Like you said, it's just so weird and dark, but the hooks are amazing. Like every chorus is just killer. I think they're really memorable songs. I used to like So more. That used to be my favorite Peter Gabriel record, but in the last few years, especially since starting this channel, this has become the clear number one for me. And I also think it's just one of the best art rock records ever. It is pretty amazing. So I love his voice and I absolutely love Biko. So there you go. That's 80. I got something in my eye.
Speck of sentiment.
What was your one 4.5 that missed?
Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables by the Dead Kennedys.
Interesting.
Didn't quite. I like it a lot, but I don't know. I was too happy and upbeat during this deep dive to really sort of connect with it this time. And then I had a murderer's row of like the greatest, biggest artists of all time right after that. Motorhead, Bob Marley, Bruce Springsteen, Judas Priest, U2, The Cars. So
I
not a lot of like deep dive finds here. I think like the only thing like kind of new for me, Sparks, Ultravox, and like that's it. Like everything else is like stuff that I was familiar with.
yeah. Um I didn't mention my star ratings at all through this video, but
Mm-mm.
my top six were 5 stars. So starting with Talking Heads to the top, that's all the 5 star stuff. A weird year where I had very few 4.5s. So only 4.5s. So the top 10 is 4.5 and up. The rest is fours. Obviously, there's a bunch of fours below the top 25 too, but
We'll discuss those in the Patreon when we drop our top 50, top 80 lists.
the last interesting thing that I want to say about 80 is that it's probably a better year than I have long given it credit for, but it does seem to be like the beginning or near the beginning. It might be like 79 where this happens, but like it's the beginning of um distrusting critics. There's a lot of like highly critically acclaimed records that I put below like 3, like 2.5, 2 stars. Just a lot of like highly regarded stuff that I do not like at all.
Like Closer.
Like Closer. We're on the same page there, but a lot of stuff. Young Marble Giants and Pylon and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, all that post-punk bullshit.
Yeah, I think before like that, like 70, maybe even 77 is where it starts. But before that, like critically acclaimed stuff is pretty safe bets. And then it's around here where it gets dicey. All right, well, let us know what we missed. Drop your own lists in the comments, hit the like button, subscribe, and then check out the video description for all kinds of links. We have a record label now. We put out our first record a little over a month ago. You can check that out. We've got merch. We've got social media. So find us, follow us. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.